So, what have you done for me lately? I hear such sad disappointment in Mary's voice in the beginning of this lesson. If only you had been here, my brother would not have died. You know, it might be the cynic in me, but what I hear Mary saying there is, you let him die. I thought we were friends, and you didn't come when I called. And that sentiment then is emphasized by the others who are also in mourning at the loss of their friend. What do they say? They say, could he who made the blind man see not have kept this man from dying? You know, there's almost a palatable amount of blame going around here. Jesus, it's your fault. It's your fault Lazarus is dead because you didn't come when we called. You didn't come and do what we asked. It's any wonder in the midst of this sadness, of this mourning, Jesus wept. And then he tells them to move away the stone. And in that moment, I think those present, those who saw this miracle, fully understood in their hearts the words of the psalmist in the 30th Psalm, what we read earlier in our call to worship. You turned my wailing into dancing. You remove my sackcloth and clothe me with the joy that my heart may sing to you and not be silent. I sometimes think about the criteria that we place on our relationship with Christ. How we sometimes define that relationship by what we get, or more accurately, whether or not we get what we want. That prism in which we view our relationship with Christ is very narrow, isn't it? It's even more narrow than how we review that relationship with each other sometimes. A few years ago, Kelly and I attended a seminar about relationships. It was done by Dr. Gary Chapman. Some of you may know the name. He wrote that book, The 5 Languages of Love. And he made this analogy. And I found that analogy used again and again and again in different studies about relationships that I've read over time. They liken the dynamics of a relationship to a dance. The way each partner moves in sync with the other. And conversely, what happens when that dance changes? How sometimes one partner will struggle to keep returning back to the original dance that they know so well, and how one partner may not move quite so smoothly, giving this new change in choreography that develops. And sometimes how two people can find themselves doing completely different dances together at the same time. And if I've come to this understanding that relationships are like a dance, then I have to say it's not just our relationships to each other that's like a dance, but also our relationship to Christ. It's a funny thing about dancing. For some people, dancing comes very, very easily. They just have this natural rhythm, and they just move with that music. And for others, it's a struggle. The counting, the moving, the coordinating of it all together. But in either case, both partners have got to practice if they're going to be able to dance well. Now, I took dance lessons. When I was an undergraduate in college, I decided I wanted and needed to take dance lessons. And so I took the whole spectrum. I took jazz, I took tap, I took ballet, and it was very, very evident very, very quickly that I was not one of those natural people. That it all came very easily to. It didn't come easy to me. And I'll admit, I was disappointed. You know, I had these visions of going into that dance studio, and I had these visions of Gene Kelly dancing in the rain. I saw Fred Astaire on the ceiling in Royal Wedding. But when I got there, for weeks, I think, I did. It was an eternity. Eventually, though, they said, okay, you can move on. And you know what they let me do? And then it got better. It got to... And then as time would go on and you'd practice, you'd start getting there. And you realize dancing is hard. Dancing takes practice. And even when you think you've got it, you can still misstep. You can still make a mistake. Now, most dances that we do in life, we dance with a partner. True? And when we dance with a partner, well, someone's got to take the lead. Right? Now in most relationships, longer-term relationships, we learn how to take turns taking the lead. Sometimes I take the lead, sometimes you take the lead. And so we try to apply that to our relationship with Christ. We keep saying, no, Jesus, let me take the lead. I know this one. I know better. In our dance with Christ, I have found that whenever we allow Christ to take the lead, that is when our wailing, our mourning turns into dancing. And that's a lesson that we need to be reminded of. Some of us often. Especially when we find ourselves in very dark places. Those places of adversity, those places of struggle. We desperately try to take control. And what we need to remember is that Christ is still in the lead. Christ is still leading us even in those difficult times. Christ is bringing us to new places, to new understandings. I think it was in his book, Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis compared God's use of adversity to walking a dog. He writes that the dog gets its lead wrapped around a pole. Now, naturally, it doesn't realize the lead is wrapped around a pole, so it keeps trying to go forward. Even as that collar tightens around his neck, He keeps trying to pull forward. Now, the dog and his master want the same result. They both want to go forward, but the master sees the big picture and knows he has to unwrap the lead from around the pole, but to do that, he has to pull the dog in the opposite direction. Now, the dog perceives that the master's going the wrong way and pulls back harder. But it is the master who better understands the entire situation and will go against the dog's will to achieve the same desired goal. You know, we all want to go a certain way. We all want to push forward. We don't like it when we're pulled the other way. But you know, we don't have the full understanding of the entire situation, as much as we like to convince ourselves otherwise. We don't have that. And so, like the gathered mourners at the grave of Lazarus, we play the blame game with Jesus. We place blame when things don't go as we want or don't go as we expect them to. We place blame when we start feeling put upon. I believe so often when we are struggling so hard, when we're struggling so hard, what we're doing is really resisting while Jesus is trying to teach us a new dance, a better dance. We're fighting to keep to that same rhythm that we know so well, where we are so comfortable. But through all things, Christ enables us to live. Through all things, Christ enables us to dance. And when we come to that understanding, when we can view life through that lens, life seems a little less unfair. We leave behind that sense that we're owed something. And as our trust and our faith grow, we gain a sense of joy, that inner feeling of peace that's not conditional upon outside circumstances. Our attitude toward life can take a radical shift if we just hold out our hand and join in the dance. Amen.